A lot of people think they're bad with money, but the truth is a little more uncomfortable than that. A lot of the money rules people still follow were built for a version of life that barely exists anymore. And that changes everything. Because now you can make decent money, avoid obvious stupidity, try to be responsible, and still feel like saving is weirdly hard. Not impossible, just harder than it should be. That feeling matters. Because when saving feels harder than it should, most people blame themselves. They think they need more discipline, more restraint, more motivation. But that's not always the real problem. The real problem is that modern spending is designed to feel small, normal, and harmless right up until you realize you have no margin left. That's the trap. Years ago, spending was more visible. You felt it more. You had more friction between wanting something and buying it. Now, everything is optimized to remove that pause. One tap, one saved card, one limited time email, one monthly payment that feels manageable, one little subscription, one delivery fee that doesn't seem worth thinking about. None of those things feels dramatic on its own, and that is exactly why they work. People imagine financial failure as some big, reckless moment, a huge shopping spree, a terrible investment, a dumb luxury purchase. But for a lot of normal people, that's not what it looks like. It looks like convenience. It looks like replacing tired decisions with easy ones. It looks like buying the cheaper thing because it feels responsible. It looks like saying yes to a payment because technically you can afford it. And this is where people get stuck. Because a rule can sound smart and still stop working in real life. Take the idea that the cheapest option is the best option. Sounds responsible, right? Not always. Sometimes the cheap version breaks faster, wears out sooner, or needs to be replaced over and over again. So what felt like saving money was really just choosing a lower upfront pain and a higher long-term cost. That small difference changes everything. Price is immediate, cost is cumulative, and a lot of people are quietly losing money because they focus on the first number and ignore the second one. The same thing happens with affordable monthly payments. This one is brutal because it feels so reasonable. You look at a car payment or a financed purchase or any recurring bill and you think, I can make that work. And maybe you can. But I can make that work is not the same as this is helping my life. Because the real damage is not always the payment itself. It's what the payment does to your flexibility. It makes the month tighter. It makes surprises more expensive. It slows down your savings. It makes every future decision feel more cramped. That is the part people miss. A lot of financial stress does not come from being irresponsible. It comes from having too much of your income already spoken for before life even starts happening. And when that happens, even small problems become expensive. A repair feels bigger. A slow work month feels scarier. A random emergency pushes you closer to debt. A good opportunity becomes something you can't act on because all your money is already committed. So no, the problem is not always that people don't know they should save. The problem is that they are trying to save with whatever is left after a system built around spending has already taken its cut. That system is stronger than people think. It shows up in your inbox. It shows up in your phone. It shows up in the idea that convenience is always worth paying for. It shows up in the habit of treating every little upgrade like a reward you earned. And to be clear, this is not about never spending money. That mindset burns people out fast. If every money choice feels like punishment, you won't keep the system. You'll rebel against it. The goal is not deprivation. The goal is accuracy. You want to know what actually improves your life and what only feels good for 5 minutes. That's a different skill. And honestly, it's a more useful one than extreme budgeting. Because the old model of money advice was very moral. Be disciplined, Say no. Stop wasting money. Try harder. But modern life does not punish you only for being reckless. It punishes you for being passive. That's the shift. If you don't deliberately shape your spending environment, it will get shaped for you. By apps, by marketing, by financing, by convenience, by default settings, by routines you didn't mean to build. So the answer is not just spend less. The answer is to update the rules. First, stop judging purchases only by price. Cheap can be expensive. Expensive can be efficient. The better question is, what does this cost me over time? Not just in dollars, in maintenance, in replacements, in stress, in lost flexibility, in future choices I won't be able to make because I locked myself into something that looked harmless. Second, stop thinking every manageable payment is acceptable. A payment can fit and still quietly damage your life. The real test is not whether it clears this month. The real test is whether it leaves you room to breathe after this month. Third, stop treating saving like an end-of-month leftover category. For most people, leftovers never magically appear. Modern life is too good at absorbing them. If saving depends on whatever survives after spending, spending usually wins. Fourth, protect yourself from engineered temptation. Not because you're weak, because you're human. If promotions, shopping nudges, and just-for-you offers are constantly sitting in front of you, they will affect you. Maybe not every time, but enough times. And enough times is all it takes. Finally, build your money system around resilience, not perfection. You do not need a flawless life. You need margin. You need room for mistakes, room for delays, room for repairs, room for one bad month without your whole plan collapsing. That is what real financial progress starts to feel like. Not flashy, not dramatic, just less fragile. And maybe that's the biggest lie people were sold, that good money management should look impressive. Usually it doesn't. Usually it looks boring. It looks like fewer bad defaults, fewer automatic leaks, fewer decisions made under pressure, more breathing room, more control, more time before stress turns into damage. That kind of progress is quiet, but it is real. So if saving has felt harder than it should, don't rush to conclude that you failed some basic character test. Look closer. Maybe you were taught rules for a world with less friction, less traps, and lower hidden costs. Maybe you were told to use discipline where you actually needed a better system. Maybe the goal was never to become a perfect saver. Maybe the goal was to stop living inside a setup that quietly drains the future you're trying to build. That is the reframe. You are not trying to prove that you're good with money every single day. You are trying to build a life where the wrong decisions happen less often, the right ones happen more easily, and your income finally has space to become something more than recovery money. Because once the rules change, blaming yourself is not a strategy. Updating the system is.